Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is Global Reality Radio Network.
Edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves, and no, I'm not going to change the opening low voice intro. Thank you very much. That's mine. I made it for the network. It's there. It's staying, and it's good enough for what it does. So thanks for being here with us tonight for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. And I wasn't going to do a show tonight either. Didn't do a show last night. Wasn't going to do one tonight either, but decided I would. Again, just a lack of material. There just hasn't been a lot of material to work with. I thought this was going to subside as we got into a new year and got past the holidays, but it hasn't. And since it really hasn't, I don't know. I think I got to tell you, I think there's something. They're planning something big. Some big operation is in the works. It's going to be launched right here at the very first of the year. I don't know exactly what. I don't even have any ideas as to what it might be. I'm not going to speculate. I can't speculate because I don't have any ideas of what that might be. If I had some, I'd throw them out there. But frankly, I don't. So, I judge what I don't get in the business of making predictions. That's not what that is. But I have a duty with what I do, looking at this stuff all the time and following patterns, to tell you when I see patterns and see things that may be of interest and may be of note. And this is definitely one of those times. Because you can really gauge a lot. One thing I've learned in my years of researching is that you can really gauge a lot by the news cycles and the things that are covered and talked about or not talked about, and lack thereof, on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And so that's one of the big reasons I follow the news as closely as I do all the time, not just for material for the show, but and for my own information. But the fact is that it's, you can always, I mean, that's what's important, to monitor the enemy transmissions, you know. That's why it's important to monitor their films and monitor their television broadcasts and monitor the radio broadcasts, so you can monitor their news, because these are all outlets they control. We know that. It's established. I don't see why shows still constantly try to just beat that over the heads of people instead of just, you know, I mean, at this point, that should be an established fact with everybody. It's like every time there's a new case of it, you know, so everybody wants to point out, you know, in every little single case of it, it's like, okay, yes. We've established that major media, in all its forms, is an extension of their power. It's an extension of themselves. So, by monitoring these things, you can really glean a lot of information. And I think that they're planning something. Plain and simple, something big's going down soon. Don't know what, don't know when, don't know where, don't know how, or anything else, but something big's going down soon, I can tell you. And, you know, now that we are here in 2012, you can bet your bottom dollar these guys are going to be ramping this shit up to the extreme, so they can ramp the fear sauce up. They can ramp the anxiety up, especially in an election year. They love to do that in an election year, folks. Come on. Let's look at this historically. What have we seen? That exact thing. So we're going to be in for a real interesting ride this year. Mayan calendar predictions or not, we're going to be in for a wild ride this year. Sooner rather than later, I think. And again, this is it. We're here. We're here now. It's not reality. We're in those days that we've all seen coming for so many years, where humanity we're going to really be at a crossroads as a species here real quick. We're going to have to wake up really quick and take action in a short amount of time, a small window. Because I still believe that at some point, the powers that be that control the world are going to fuck up in a big time way. It's just a numbers game, folks. Everything in life is a numbers game. And when you look at how they've been able to keep this agenda and this control structure a secret in a large way for many years, it can't be kept a secret forever. That would go against the entire law of the universe. There can't always be darkness. Eventually, there has to be light. It's a universal absolute. And I think that that's what's going to happen. I think that they are going to inevitably show their ass in a major way. I think they're going to fuck up so big on a world stage. And I don't mean just the United States or the EU or the Eastern Bloc or anything. I mean the world power structure. I'm talking about a fuck up that's so big and so world-wide spread that every single man, woman, and child on this planet with 2% of a brain would immediately know that they had been lied to. All of us have been lied to forever, essentially. And again, it's just a numbers game, folks. Whether it happens in our time or whether it doesn't, it will happen eventually. It has to. So I think that's the most important thing. These people are not flawless. And their hubris in their ego is going to get to them eventually, and it will be their undoing. So until then, we keep on making it not easy for them. That's our job. While Alex Jones and the Patriotards and the rest of the phonies out there in so-called truth and conspiracy radio land continue to aid and abet the worldwide globalist terrorists who control this system. And those are the real terrorists in the world. You understand that. The global power structure, the global hierarchy are the ones that have been terrorizing humanity since time immemorial. And again, all of these things happen in cycles. They've happened before and they've gone through periods, and we're right in the middle of that. The elite are very aware of this time period that we're going through right now. They're very aware of galactic alignment. They're very aware of the going out of one age and into a new age. And they're very aware of the time, and it happens over, a period of, 600-700 years. The sort of in-between period does, between ages. You go from one age to another, but you've got hundreds, thousands of years sometimes in between these different ages. Well, we're in the middle of that right now. That's why Sabrina Brzezinski, one of the most high-level people in the power structure, named his 1969 book, "The Rise of the Technotronic Era Between Two Ages." That's what's interesting about that. That's not just something any, head of state or something like that would know. That's something that comes from the deep teachings of the mystery schools and everything else between two ages. The significance of that, because the adepts and the people in the secret societies know that when you are living and existing on Earth in a period that is between two ages, society and humanity in general is being pulled and stretched like one of those Stretch Armstrong dolls, you know? Remember those, you know, where your friend, you get one end, your friend gets the other, and you just fucking stretch Armstrong out, you know, like some hooker's vagina? Well, that's what's being done to us right now, and that's the period that you and me and our people for hundreds of years before us and hundreds of years after us are existing in, where the energies and the feelings of the old age are operating on you and working within you, and you're feeling that, all of us, and the entire world for that matter. But then the energies and the feelings and the beliefs and everything of the new age are also having their effect on us because we're caught right in the middle of it. You know, we're kind of in a purgatory, for lack of a better term. And they understand this. They understand these cycles. The world controllers as a whole at the highest levels, they understand this perfectly. And that's how they're able to manipulate things and make them appear that that is just the natural state of things, because they're aware of these different energies that happen to pervade all things on our planet during these times. So this is exactly why they're doing this. They're manipulating us because they give us these little sprinkles of the new age and little sprinkles of the old age. And that's kind of how, microcosmically, in a small way, that's exactly what, left-right politics does. Which is exactly how, again, as above, so below. As in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm. So you see that, you've got right-wing politics sort of stays, conservatives, let's stay in the old age, let's stay there because that's what makes us great. The left, the progressives, the liberals, let's leave all that old stuff behind and progress into new religion, into new ways of thinking, new gender classifications. You see that? And that's why this system of voting, alleged voting in this whole political system is the perfect thing to play on society. You ask yourself, why didn't they play it like this 200 years ago or 300 years ago? Well, was it just because they didn't have technology, because they didn't have media and all that? No, I don't think so. I think it's because if you really look at this, right now, in the time that we are in 2012, and even a few years before this, the past 30, 40 years, we are in that age where it's the perfect time, if you're trying to control a people of a planet in its entirety, to have this sort of, political system that bases itself on these left versus right, me versus you, old way of thinking versus new way of thinking, and let's have a battle royale throwdown and see who wins, and whoever the winner is will determine whether or not we as a people go into the future and see what that's like, or stay in the past because that's what we believe is the universal unchangeable, and to go to anything other than that would be complete blasphemy. And that's just, to me, it's so amazing to look at that and learn that from my research and see that when you understand these cycles and these movements of our planet and how they affect us and every living sentient thing on this planet at any given time. During those time scales, life on Earth was very different hundreds of thousands of years ago because of the age that the planet and the people on it at that time and all things on it at that time were currently existing in. These are the things that the mystery religions know. This is the things that the elite at the highest levels know. And by keeping that type of information restricted from us, keeping us ignorant of it, they're able to keep the flow of world events flowing the way they see fit to fit their agenda. And I say no more to that. because we can now see what these people are really doing. We can now see what they're really up to. And it's just it's just a fascinating thing to see that we are able to be manipulated because of our lack of knowledge, the lack of information, and the restriction of this by the controllers at the highest levels. Our ignorance is 100% what gives them their power, folks. And if we can climb out of this ignorance stupor that they forced us all into, then we will be able to truly be free as a people. Again, you want to know what the solution is. The solution is to learn what they learn and become as one with that information. Learn how to use that to your advantage so it doesn't work against you. Things that you don't know about and have no awareness of work against you with an unfair advantage because you're not even aware they exist. So that's what they've done. They've not allowed us to be aware of all of these different factors and things that, the knowledge of could save us a lot of time and heartache and a lot of probably added years to our lives and everything else, because they're operating from a different knowledge base than we are. So thanks for being with us here tonight. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. And you can find the links to everything up there to listen to the show and the archives, all that stuff. You can get the Secret Right Volume 2 on Blu-rays and DVD. We're going to be mailing out. We had a delay in the shipping on the DVDs. I apologize for that profusely to everybody out there. It's been a clusterfuck the past week because we had some snags with our the financial situation with money and paying the bills and all this stuff, because we had one of our regular donators who got fucked over by PayPal, so they had to mail a check, and it was the holidays, and I had to clear. And I had to take the money out that I had for shipping out to pay for the bills, and then we were $200 short on our goal. And then I got the check situation worked out, and then I went to go mail the stuff because the only time I could go was at night, and then I went at night, and then you had to have cash. You couldn't use cash. You had to have your card. And that was like the first time I didn't have cash on my card. Every other time has been perfectly. That time I just had cash, so I wasn't able to mail. I made like 3 trips to the post office this week trying to mail this stuff, guys, and just wasn't able to do it. So I apologize for that. But it's all worked out now, so it's not even worth thinking about. Let's forget about it. It's over. So we're going to be getting the rest of that stuff shipped out. I've got some more. I got a box up. I'll be doing my best again. I'll be doing out a big round of them tomorrow, and working on more tonight to send out. So sit tight. They are on their way. I apologize for the delay. They've been here for 2 weeks. They should have already been out to you. But it's one of those things that you get to the end of doing stuff, and then it's just timing, The DVDs got here right the week of Christmas. So that was a week before the end of the month. So we got our DVDs in and had to... Well, that's the same thing that happened to us last month. Last month we had to pay for the DVDs and pay rent all in the same week. Well, rent and bills and all that stuff. And network costs and the stream bill and all that. So I had to pay all that stuff in one shot. And so that hurt us. And then when the DVDs got here, it was the end of the month. So then we had to pay for the DVDs to be shipped out at the end of the month and pay our end of the month bills and all that stuff. So, oh man. See, now that I look at it like that, I actually see that I'm not as mad about it as I wasn't really mad about it, but just get frustrated, not mad. That's kind of a harsh word. It was just, you just get frustrated because you're trying to, you know how it gets. You're trying to do something. You feel it's important, and you're, and then you have a snag and you can't do it. And you're just like, oh, God damn it. But yeah, I mean, that's just, that's how it is. But now that I look at it like that, now that I see that, okay, well, we had to do that at the first of this month and the last of this month was both when both things were happening, just because that was because I finished the film at the end of a month at the beginning of the month. So that's what it was. Okay. Wow. So that's why it's been a clusterfuck for the past 2-3 months here with the financial stuff, because we're having to get all the bills and the stuff for the film out of the way at the same time twice in 1 month. Okay. Whew. Now I feel better. I feel better about it now. Now that I look at it, like, wow, man, that was tough. That's why I couldn't figure it out, because we've been doing pretty good for a while. The past several months we've been doing okay, and we haven't really had any real snags or anything. People have been supporting us, not as much in the middle of the month, but we've been getting the bills paid at the first of the month for the past few months. So things are going pretty good there. That's what it was. Yeah, it's just such a big undertaking, especially when you're somebody like me and I'm just one person, and doing a film on any level, man, it's a big undertaking. And there's a lot more unforeseen factors than little shit that just pops up that no matter how well you've laid your plan, just tend to pop up for no reason, reasons that you're not expecting. You know what I mean? And that's really certainly what's happened. So I appreciate everybody who donated and everybody who helped make the Cigarette Volume 2 happen. And, now all there's left is for us to continue to get that film out to people and continue to try and get it out to as many people as possible, so I can get on to the next film. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of that stuff tonight. We've got different news stories here to get into. And a few, not a lot. Again, it was kind of not a lot of material, but that's what I was mentioning at the first of the broadcast. I mean, something's definitely going on. There's definitely a big operation being planned. So, but not a reason to be me saying those things. I don't want people who don't listen to the show on a regular basis or haven't listened to it before or something to get the wrong impression about me. I don't say those kind of things saying, it looks like something big's in the works to get you to, board up your windows and like a fucking hurricane's coming or something, fill the bathtub up with dog food and, lock and load. I don't mention those things so you'll have a fear response out of them. I hope that you don't. But most of the time when I hear people make predictions about events or things happening, it's just total fear-based hogwash. And then when I see a pattern, and when I see an indicator from following news and following news cycles and all this stuff, and then I don't see, the big names of the truth realm talking about it, that worries me. Because then that makes me think, oh man, that we're definitely in one of those moments where it does look like there's something big. I don't know what. Again, can't speculate. It's going to happen right here at the first of the year. We are in an election year. You're going to see things. I mean, people could speculate all night long on what it's going to be. I know, the usual stuff. War or who knows what, but. Yeah, they're definitely, judging by the news cycle, I would say there's something big around the corner. We were talking the other night about some of these different anomalies and different things that, you just start to see. I've started to see a lot more of them over the past several months in everything that I research. It just seems like there's weird time anomalies. We've been talking about that quite a bit here. And all these different times, it just seems like there's evidence of time travel, people time traveling all around us, weird artifacts and stuff appearing in places they shouldn't appear at, the anti-Kythera mechanism, all this, just different things like that. People finding a watch in a, ancient tar pit, things like that. And, with my research now into the rock wall and some of these other ancient archaeological sites here in the United States of America, I started thinking about some of the strange anomical things that were found at the rock wall. Like, for instance, the shark's teeth embedded into this thing. Sand dollars at the bottom where they dug down to the blue shale that still had fresh meat in them. And then I saw this story today, and I saw several stories, and I've got them here. I'll read them for you tonight, that had to do with changing of the time, adding a leap second, going to a new calendar. And I'm just thinking, isn't this quite convenient that all of a sudden there's all this talk about new calendars and new ways of keeping track of time as we're entering here into 2012? I mean, it's kind of hard to believe those are coincidences. But listen to this. Modern disease found in ancient bones. Now, to me, folks, this is just a classic case of, somebody's been time traveling for quite a bit of time. Just listen to this. This is just insane. U.S. scientists said Tuesday that their study of a set of medieval bones found in Albania has revealed traces of a modern infectious disease that afflicts people who eat unpasteurized dairy products. Now, how could that be? Looks like somebody back then was doing some time traveling. The findings published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology are the first to suggest that the disease known as brucellosis has been in Albania since at least the Middle Ages. Primarily an animal disease, brucellosis is common in rural farming parts of the Mediterranean region and is typically transmitted to humans through eating raw sheep and goat cheeses that come from infected animals. The disease can cause flu-like symptoms, including fever, weakness, and weight loss, according to the World Health Organization. It also causes bone damage that, in this case, researchers initially mistook for tuberculosis. The bones came from the ancient Albanian city of Butrint, once a large Roman colony and outpost of the Byzantine Empire that was abandoned in the Middle Ages due to widespread floods. Two skeletons believed to belong to teenage males from the 10th and 13th century showed significant lesions in the vertebrae. Significant lesions in the vertebrae. Researchers at Michigan State University took part in an international team of archaeologists who were excavating the site with a particular view to analyzing bones with the latest forensic DNA methods. They were sent back samples to the university's forensic DNA lab in East Lansing, Michigan, but tests for tuberculosis came back negative. So they decided to devise a new test for brucellosis based on the theory that both diseases cause similar bone damage, and this time it came back positive. In this case, it was a combination of inquisitiveness, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so they found, it's amazing to find something brand new and something that is 1,000 years old. So they found a new disease in a 1,000-year-old bone. So what is that? Proposed new calendar would make time rational. From Wired.com here. It was published on November 28th. Time is eternal, but methods of tracking it are not. And so as St. John, a Johns Hopkins University astronomer wants to replace a Gregorian calendar with its leap years. Oh, Jesus, pop-up bullshit. Go away. I don't want to watch your fucking stupid-ass commercial. They want to replace the Gregorian calendar with its leap years and floating dates and 15th century effluvia with a sleek and standardized system for the world. According to Richard Kahn Henry's calendar, 8 months would each have 30 days. Every month would have 31 days. Every so often, to account for the leftover time, a whole week would be added. The upshot, years would proceed with clockwork regularity and with no annual rejiggering of schedules required. Each day would occupy the same position as it had the previous year and would in the next. Were this 364-day calendar, known officially as the Hank Harry Permanent Calendar, adopted on the first day of 2012, both Christmas and New Year's Day would forever fall on Sunday. So I guess they didn't do this year. I guess they're not. But, you know, still, that's one example. Here's another one. This one came out today, actually. Ready your watch. The leap second is coming. The International Earth Rotation and Reference System Service in Paris, the grand arbiters of time on our big blue marble, has declared that a leap second will be introduced on the 30th of June, 2012. So what on earth is a leap second? We used to use the Earth's dutiful rotation as a way of measuring time. It pirouettes on its axis once every 24 hours, which can then be divided into minutes and seconds. But the Earth's rotation is annoyingly irregular, with some days ending up being a tiny bit longer or shorter than others. There's nothing science hates more than unpredictability. So in the 1950s, atomic clocks were introduced to keep time. By measuring the regular atomic vibrations in the element cesium, we ended up with a clock that can be used to score off seconds with remarkable accuracy. Multiple atomic clocks work in unison to precisely calculate world time. But that leaves a problem. If we lived on atomic time, it very slowly gravitated away from the Earth's actual time. In a few years, we'd be a second out of sync. In hundreds of years, we'd be a minute out. And after several 100,000 years, we could be eating lunch in the middle of the night. So timekeepers introduced the leap second. As the atomic clock's perfect accuracy, known as International Atomic Time, veers farther and farther away from the Earth's clumsy rotation, the IERS introduces a leap second to bring them back into perfect parity. Positive or negative leap seconds are introduced every time atomic and solar time get a second out of sync in either direction. They are strictly regimented to be added either on December 31st or June 30th. The last one was added on December 2008. So, again, having to repaint lines on runways, all this stuff. I mean, the Earth seems to be, we're losing our magnetic field, and there's magnetic anomalies, and time is changing. I mean, the winter, people are just blown away by this winter where there's been no snow, and even in places where normally they get covered in snow. That's happening in all the resort towns, killing the tourism industry. Just a very mild. I actually had an email from one of our listeners, Mitchell. Where did it go? He says he's in Minnesota, and he says the weather is so not natural. 60 degrees in January, had almost no snow this winter. Most lakes are partly open. I'm on the road daily. Shaft spraying has been relentless. No doubt heat is being trapped. So he's in Minnesota, and in January, and they've had almost no snow this winter. I mean, come on. I've known a lot of people lived up in Minnesota, and believe me, they all said it's fucking, that's winter up there. But, I think this definitely has something to do with the cycles of the sun. And, of course, we know that also affects time. So are we going to get to the bottom of this stuff? Are we going to get up off our asses and start doing our own research and dig into the bottom of this and find out what they really know about all this and what they're keeping from us? I think we need to. I don't think we have a choice at this point. A group of computer enthusiasts have been working on creating a satellite network that could be used to thwart censorship on the internet. I like the sound of this. Called the Hackerspace Global Grid, HGG, the network could provide a way for activists to access the net when a repressive regime suppresses access within its borders. The network, I predicted this like 3 or 4 years ago. Those of you who've been listening to my show for a long time will totally vouch for me on that. I predicted this 2 or 3 years ago. When people started asking me questions about, what are we going to do if they shut down the internet? What are we going to do with our radio shows and these websites and stuff? And I said, look, man, don't even worry about it. There are teams of hackers that for years that have been working on setting up, the alternate internet in the event that they start to pull the plug on us. Oh, yeah. And look, here it is. I mean, people have been working on this for a long time. The network would be based on a number of low orbiting cube satellites that would be networked in a way similar to the internet. If one satellite was to be disabled, for example, its functions could be rerouted to others in the network. Various amateur and educational organizations, ham radio operators, for example, have found ways to get their cube satellites in orbit. And the hacker grid hopes to use those methods as well as others to get its spacecraft into low orbit too. According to Nick Farr, a hacker and accountant who is working on the project, what we're seeing right now is a big explosion of people launching cube satellites. Those satellites are small They have a near-Earth orbit and have a small communication window with base stations on the ground. To get a CubeSat in the sky, amateur satellite launchers typically piggyback their bird on a bigger payload. Oftentimes, launchers have more rocket than they need for their payload because of security, safety, or some other reason. So they'll have room for lots of smaller payloads that can detach in near-Earth orbit. The HGG is now in its infancy stage, but one of the first problems it has is to solve how to track those low-orbiting satellites from the ground. Yeah, well, that's true. But I knew that was gonna be coming down the pike sooner rather than later. If you'd like to send an email into the show anytime or during the show while it's live here tonight, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Let's go globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Let's see. We have some emails here tonight. Here's one from Dominic. Dominic says, Mr. Reeves, do you know of any organizations, clubs, groups, etc. in Chicago that have your views or interested in seeking out the truth? I would like to get involved in exposing the truth. We have quite a few listeners in Chicago. I know we've got there's quite a few. I know Nick is there, and John, and who else? Lee Ivino. Yeah, I mean, there are some awake people that, are into what I do. They're in the Chicago area. What I would do is just come into the chat room at my website, theglobalreality.com, Dominic, and just, come in, make a sign-in name, come in there, say, hey, I'm the guy that, I'm the guy in Chicago. Anybody, here's my email address. If anybody is in Chicago, email me. Let's get together or whatever. I would do that. I don't know any other way to do it, but that'd be the best way because you can go in the chat room, and I know some of those people do go in the chat room sometimes. So, if you're from Chicago and you're into what I do and you're looking for people to hang out and talk to, maybe have a meetup group, meet once a month at a restaurant or something for 2 hours a night and have a discussion about things and talk about different things about how to go out and pass out DVDs and putting some money together to go out and pass out copies of DVDs and stuff like that. Then hey, by all means, start up a Chicago group, and you guys could all, I'm sure there are a lot more of you out there. So we have a listener who's in Chicago. He needs people of like mind to meet up with. His name is Dominic. If you are one of those people, go to the chat room and drop your information in there. Hope that helps out there, Dominic. Thanks for sending me an email. Let's see what else we have. Have you read Genesis Giants by Stephen Quayle? No. I tend to stay away from anything Stephen Quayle does. That's just me. That's all the emails we have. Let's see what other news we have tonight. Not a lot of stuff. We have an updated story on the much discussed and quite controversial article that came out a week or two ago pertaining to these Mayan ruins in Georgia. Now, I had shared that article with some friends and shared it on social networking sites and stuff, and I started noticing there was some of my friends, there was people saying that the information was not legitimate or something, or I just saw somebody say it was fake or it was a hoax, and I'm like, well, it's not fake, it's not a hoax. There's actual, there's actual. I mean, we've seen pictures of there is actual ruins there. But I started seeing people throwing the baby out with the bathwater, just saying it's fake, it's fake, it's fake. And I was like, what's going on with this? When I looked into it, and I found out that basically what it was is that you had, as you always do, just like you have people talking about the rock wall, saying it's a natural formation when it obviously is not. You have people that are going to deny this is, I don't know if it's Mayan or not. I don't really give a rat's ass if it is or not. That's not the point. Point is, there is, there's some sort of lost civilization from someone there. That's fuck all old. And they're trying to get us to concentrate on this argument of whether or not it's Mayan or whether it isn't. I mean, who cares? But what I saw was that people were just saying that altogether that the story was fake, implying that there was no archaeological ruins or finding or anything there at all, when that's not the case. There's actually pictures of it out now. The textbooks will tell you that the Mayan people thrived in Central America from about 250 to 900 AD, building magnificent temples in Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, and southern Mexico. But could they possibly have left stone ruins in the mountains of North Georgia? Richard Thornton thinks so. He says he's an architect by training, but has been... What's up with that? What's up with these architects becoming archaeologists? That's, it's the same way it was with that John Lindsay guy and the rock wall stuff. And, and he found out about that from, he worked on one of the NASA missions, and he found out about the rock wall while he was working at NASA because they asked him to look at these Landsat images. Now, why would NASA be looking at Landsat images of that area, specifically the wall? On Examiner.com, he wrote about an 1,100-year-old archaeological site near Georgia's highest mountain, Brasstown Ball, that he said is possibly the site of the fabled city of Upaha, which Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto failed to find in 1540. This might all be fairly arcane stuff, except that an archaeologist he cited, Mark Williams of the University of Georgia, took exception. In the comments section after Thornton's piece, he wrote, "I am the archaeologist Mark Williams mentioned in this article. This is total and complete bunk. There is no evidence of Maya in Georgia. Now move along." Now, okay, now that's what a lot of people I know base their whole, it's complete bunk. There's no evidence, blah, blah, move along. Well, wait a minute. Who cares if it's Mayan or not? Why are we so concerned about it has to be, whether or not it's Mayan or not? The story is there's something there. It's old. Why shouldn't we find out what it is? That's how I don't trust any of this. Immediately, the story exploded in comments on Examiner as well as on Facebook and in emails. Users piled on. One woman called Williams completely pompous and arrogant. A man wrote that he was completely disrespectful to the public at large. Another said he would urge the state of Georgia to cut off funding for Williams' academic department at the university. All of this left Thornton, who writes often about the Maya for Examiner.com, dumbfounded. "I was actually giving Williams a plug," he said in an interview with ABC News. "I've got a regular readership, but this thing just went viral." Thornton, who said he is Georgia Creek Indian by birth, volunteered that doing research about Mesoamerican culture in the U.S. has been a difficult way to make a living. For 9 months before the Examiner hired him, he was so poor he had to live out of a tent. He said that he now makes money by writing online and lecturing. Well, that's kind of strange. I didn't know the Examiner hired anybody. From my understanding, the Examiner, anybody can get an article published on there. You just pay them. So right there, I would say that's kind of suspect. Some of his conclusions about the Mayan connection to the southern U.S., he said, are based on oral history. There are place names in Georgia and South Carolina, he said, they're very similar to Mayan words. And the ruins near Brasstown Bald, he said, include mounds and irrigation terraces similar to those found at Mayan settlements in Central America. Williams, the doubting archaeologist, had many online defenders. While there are many, many compelling parallels between Central American and North American indigenous mythologies, wrote one, that does not mean that there was direct evidence that the post-classic period collapse Maya immigrated all the way to Georgia. Williams stood his ground against Thornton's suggestion that Brasstown Bald has any Mayan roots. The sites are certainly those of Native Americans of prehistoric Georgia, he wrote in an email. Wild theories are not new, but the web simply spreads them faster than ever. So yeah, so it seems, I mean, why are they giving this so much media time? I mean, this just smells of a controlled op 7 ways to Sunday. I don't believe either one of these guys. I believe they're both working for the same cause. Somebody has a vested interest in covering up whatever this is. So they got good cop, bad cop going on here for the public view. They've got good cop, Mr. Examiner, I'm just an archaeologist, blah, 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 blah. Mr. Bad Cop, I'm a go to the university and, I'm saying it's all hogwash, blah, blah. But wait, nobody's really telling you the truth on either side of this, because whether they're mine or whether there's something else, there's something there. Obviously, it's important. And I want to get out my ass out to Georgia and go cover this. Maybe if we meet our goal on our Chiven banner this month, that could happen. We'll see. I mean, now that this has come out, I mean, I'm really fascinated. I'd like to go out there for myself and examine some of this stuff, get some video footage and see what's really going on here. Because obviously there's some kind of a cover-up going on. Obviously somebody's trying to get us distracted with this dog and pony show of archaeologists versus, the university guy. No, it's not mine, blah, 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 that's hogwash. Because, like I said, what it's doing is it's causing people to believe that there's nothing there at all. There's no kind of ruins and there's just a bunch of rocks. Well, that's not the truth. It's a civilization of some kind, but you see how they do that. They get people to just ignore altogether that something is there. Why is there such an importance placed on whether it's mine or not? Who cares? When you look at most of these civilizations, it's all dependent on which one came before, which one came after, but they all had their roots in something, and they were all kind of a continuation of another thing. Why are, ruins that are found in the United States any less important than things that are found anywhere else in the world? Because, everywhere else in the world, they don't build houses and condos and all this shit on top of archaeological sites. No, they excavate them and find out what they are. But here in the United States, if we find any of these old links, we just want to make sure they're covered up as quick as possible. When you say cover up, and these guys are covering things up, they really are literally covering things up with dirt and keeping them hidden underground. It's not just figuratively speaking here. It's literal with these guys as well. Boy, this is rich. So they have now come out and said that they know how to stop small earthquakes from happening during the use of fracking. The only problem is it's $10 million per one. So they've now admitted that they know how to stop the earthquakes. They know how to stop all of this stuff from happening. But, hey, well, it's $10 million a pop. So, what? The money's all worthless anyway. So they would rather kill us and fuck up our planet and fuck up the land and everything else than to fork over more of their phony Templar notes to pay for things that would not cause any of this to ever happen. With mounting evidence linking hundreds of small earthquakes from Oklahoma to Ohio to the energy industry's growing use of fracking technology, scientists say there is one way to minimize risks of even minor tremblers. Only problem, it costs about $10 million a pop. A thorough seismic survey to assess tracts of rock below where oil and gas drilling fluid is disposed of could help detect earthquake-prone areas. That would be far more costly than the traditional method of drilling a borehole, which takes a limited sample of a rock formation and gives no hints of fault lines or plates. The more expensive method will be a hard sell as long as irrefutable proof of the link between fracking and earthquakes remains elusive. If we knew what was in the earth, we could perfectly mitigate the risk of earthquakes. That's something we don't have enough science to do yet. So they admit that they have the ability to be able to, stop this, but hey, it costs too much, so we can't do it. Who cares? Let's just kill everybody anyway, right? Fuck it. Ron Paul's moving into New Hampshire, and what's he doing? So looks like he's getting ready to throw it again, just like he did in New Hampshire last time. Oh, I'm just going to run Wouldn't that be funny if Ron Paul just did what he did last time and said, "Oh, I decided I'm going to run an educational campaign"? What? He'll probably do it again. because they're saying everybody else is pumping it, up going into New Hampshire, which is vital. And he's taking a few days off. He's not real worried about it. You see, all smoke and mirrors. Please don't fall for any of that garbage. This is from Gizmodo. Interesting article here. Lost world discovered under Antarctica. The discovery is amazing, straight out of a Jules Verne novel. Scientists from the University of Oxford, University of Southampton, the National Oceanography Center, and the British Antarctic Survey have discovered a lost world thriving with unknown species under Antarctica in the East Scotia Ridge. Researchers used a remotely operated vehicle to explore the depths of the East Scotia Ridge, which is full of hydrothermal vents, which can reach up to 719 degrees Fahrenheit. They discovered an amazing new world packed with unknown species, according to project leader Professor Alex Rogers of Oxford University's Department of Zoology. These alien-looking white creatures are thriving in the rich chemicals ejected by the vents. The researchers who just published their discoveries on the biology section of the Public Library of Science, a nonprofit organization of scientists, were amazed to find so many never-before-seen species in large numbers. And this is why they're starting to send more probes and more things to different places that they've said have been uninhabitable for years, because now they started to figure out that, this idea that for something to exist and be alive, it has to be carbon-based like us. And that's just not the truth. So I think what they found microcosmically on our planet now, in these, harsh, crazy they found, they're finding life in every. It just adapts to whatever. In lava, they find living things, Those extreme temperatures and extreme climates, they still find thriving life. And that's a microcosmic thing for our entire universe. Life exists in more places than we have the comprehension to understand that it exists there at this point. But that doesn't make it any less real. White House denies CIA teleported Obama to Mars. From Wired Magazine. Oh, this is rich. Forget Kenya, never mind the secret madrasas. The sinister, shocking truth about Barack Obama's past lies not in East Africa, but in outer space. As a young man in the early 1980s, Obama was part of a secret CIA project to explore Mars. The future president teleported there along with the future head of DARPA. That's the assertion, at least, of a pair of self-proclaimed time-traveling, universe-exploring government agents. And this could be what we've been talking about with this time travel stuff here, folks. Andrew DiPassaggio and William Stillings insist that they once served as chrononauts at DARPA's behest, traversing the boundaries of time and space. They swear. A youthful Barack Obama was one of them. Perhaps this all sounds fantastical, absurd, and more than a little nuts. We couldn't agree more. That's one of the reasons why we love conspiracy theories. The more awesomely insane, the better. Each week during 2012, when the Mayans tell us to expect the apocalypse, Danger Room will peel back a new layer of crazy to expose those oh-so-cleverly hidden machinations powering this doomed place of existence. Welcome back to Tinfoil Tuesday. According to Passaggio and Stillings, Obama isn't just lying about his identity, he's lying about his military service record, too. While his political opponents in 2008 attacked him for never serving, in truth, he was concealing his participation in a hidden CIA intergalactic program hosted at a California community college in 1980. Officially, the White House says Obama never went to Mars, only if you count watching Marvin the Martian. Tommy Vietor, the spokesman for the National Security Council, tells Danger Room, but that's exactly what a secret chrononaut wants you to believe. Obama wasn't the only one making the otherworldly voyage, as Barry Soetoro, the 19-year-old Obama, was one of 10 youths selected to secretly teleport to and from Mars, forming a band of interplanetary teen titans. Regina Dugan, the director of DARPA, was another member. Now, that's just strange that they would just throw in the head of DARPA would just be thrown in there. Somebody's going to make up something like that, wouldn't throw in someone who would be a real honest to God, contender. That's who that would be. Wow. There might be something to this, man. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Would it you? I mean, my God, look at everything we already know. Between 1981 and 1983, Obama is supposed to have visited Mars twice by way of a teleportation chamber called a jump room. Basiago, a fellow chrononaut, told the website Exopolitics that he saw Obama walk back to the jump room from across the Martian terrain. To acknowledge his comrade, Obama is said to have told Basiago, "We're here," with some sense of fatalism. It's not known exactly what Obama did on Mars, socializing Martian healthcare perhaps, building a birth certificate printing press. His mission was a perilous one, according to Basiago and Stillings. The CIA wished to establish a defense regime protecting the Earth from threats from space, as well as a legal claim to territorial sovereignty, making Obama something of a Martian conquistador. Presumably, Obama's CIA handlers needed him to acclimate Martian humanoids and animals to their presence in order to secure the U.S.-Martian alliance. We'll bet you weren't even aware of Martian animals. Simply put, your task is to be seen and not eaten. An elder chrononaut, retired Army Major General Ed Dames, is alleged to have told a young Barack Obama, "You can scoff the idea of Obama on Mars, but it explains a lot. Obviously, the birth certificate controversy is a side effect of Obama forgetting to sufficiently establish his fake identity as he learned to manipulate time and space. Dugan had a demonstrated record of supporting space travel. The jump room must be broken, and who else but a man accustomed to keeping the country's most explosive secret would be comfortable waging so many undeclared wars? Ignore Basiago and Stillings at your own peril. If Obama is reelected, the U.S. is finally colonizing Mars." What a weird article. Why would Wired dedicate, the time to even run that article if it's just hogwash and there's nothing to it? And that's just bizarre. Totally bizarre. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. When that's what they're putting up as news stories. I mean, there's something going on. They're planning something, man. Something big. Again, I don't know what, but there's definitely something in the works. My website where this broadcast originates from is www.theglobalreality.com. It's theglobalreality.com. We have the Chipping banner up there for our fundraiser for this month. And we've combined that with our bills and also a fundraiser to kick off 2012 to get some funds in here to get started on the next film and on all the rest of that stuff. So please support us. We don't have commercials. We don't have sponsors or anything else, but we are highly dependent on your work. We do need your support right now, folks. It's been abysmal over the past few weeks. We didn't got $200 short on our bills last month, and we haven't got much help at all this week. So we need to get some help in here, folks, to get the job done. TheGlobalReality.com. We're going to take a break, come back, and get into Chapter 13 of the Kabbalion for you here tonight on the show. My name is Josh Reeves. You are listening to The Global Reality, and as soon as I get a song up here to listen to, we are going to go to a... All right, back here with you on the show. This is The Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network with me, your host, Josh Reeves. Thanks for being with us here tonight for another late night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. And we have, as of January 2nd of this week, we had started our new time slot. The show is now going to be airing Monday through Friday, midnight Central Standard Time, right here on the network. And I also want to be clear about that in some nights when there's not a lot of material and stuff, we may start the show 20 minutes after, 30 minutes after, 40 minutes after, something like that. But still earlier than we had been doing it for the past few months. I've been doing it real late. I mean, we're starting shows like 2 a.m. sometimes. So I moved it up from that. But I just want to let everybody know that sometimes, you should tune in. If you hear music playing on the stream, that means there's a 98% chance there's a show. So just sit tight and wait for me to come live there. But midnight Central Standard Time is when we're going to be doing the approximate time for the show start now. And again, sometimes we have to change that around, when there's not a lot of stuff. But anyway, we're going to be getting into Chapter 13 of the Kabbalion for you here tonight. I also have another thing I want to read for you here real quick, an article I found when I was doing some research, kind of on the topic of these anomalous things, have been found that don't really fit into, the equivalent of finding a jumbo jet inside the Great Pyramid, that kind of thing. Well, there's all kinds of cases of that. And I have the sneaking suspicion that somehow, some way, that a lot of this is going to play into this next film that I'm working on in ways that I'm not really even aware of yet. You know what I mean? I just feel like this is going to play into it. So let me grab this real quick. I pulled this from an online article. I'm not going to vouch for the validity of the source or the website or anything, but in the mid-1950s, Mrs. Allian K. Ecker pulled a peculiar object from red clay 15 feet down in a well workmen were digging on her farm in Guthrie, Oklahoma. After she had washed off the mud and clay, she found that she had retrieved a figurine that depicted a bearded, robed figure holding a lamb. A man who claimed to be an expert on wood carving told her that the artifact had been shaped from a tree harder than ebony, a tree that had been extinct for centuries, but no one could identify the figure of the ancient shepherd. After the object had been in her possession for some time, 2 Chinese students at a nearby college told Mrs. Ecker that they recognized the figurine as a representation of Shao Hsing, the Chinese god of longevity. The idol was considered by the students to be the earliest representation of the god, who is esteemed as a deity many centuries before Christ. Okay, so why was that found in fucking Oklahoma? Hello? And why aren't we asking these questions? Well, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'll tell you what. Now that I've found so much of this, man, and the Rockwall tying into this is like opened up a whole other can of whoop ass for me. About 1910, a small boy playing in the tiny settlement of Flora Vista, New Mexico, dug up 2 slabs of carved rock and released a controversy that has raged unabated ever since. Among the symbols of an ancient language no one has yet deciphered are the figures of a number of indigenous animals and 2 elephants. Clearly, unmistakably, with trunks and floppy ears and tusks, the figures represent elephants. The boy found the slabs in the 800-year-old tribal ruins of the Animas River, opposite the village of Flora Vista. Can someone draw a picture of an elephant without ever having seen one? It has been postulated that if you put enough monkeys in a room with enough typewriters and provide them with enough paper, one of them will eventually reproduce Hamlet. If countless ancient Native American tribal artists had carved enough representations of animals on enough rock slabs, is it possible that one of them had eventually carved an elephant? To examine the alternatives, we might say that one of the following explains the elephant slabs. Mammoths coexisted in the southwestern United States until 8 centuries ago with men sophisticated enough to capture their image in art. An invasion fleet launched by an Asian potentiate reached the New World complete with war elephants, and a native tribal artist captured the event for posterity. Number 3, the slabs were the work of a hoaxer who hid his fakes in the old tribal ruins so that sooner or later either an archaeologist or a small boy would uncover them. Number 4, the slabs found their way to New Mexico via the trade ships of the Phoenicians or Africans between 900 to 200 BCE. On September 13, 1924, near Tucson, Arizona, Charles E. Manier found the first of what would prove to be a series of unusual artifacts inscribed with what very nearly appears to be Latin. Among the 27 artifacts are 6 crosses, 9 swords or sword fragments, a spear-headed serpent cross, and a crescent cross. According to authorities, the language appears to be a Latin of a style popular up to AD 900, and dates on some of the pieces bear out this supposition. But the Latin inscriptions strive to record a kind of history of settlement and provide a journal of exploration that makes no sense, and a few Hebrew words thrown in there to add confusion rather than clarification. Again, we are left attempting to explain bizarre hybrid artifacts. Number 1, the crosses and swords with their peculiar Latin inscriptions could be some incredible hoax. A band of explorers, perhaps from the Mediterranean area with a knowledge of Christianity, Latin, and Hebrew, could somehow, circa 800 AD, have gotten themselves to the American Southwest, established a colony, recorded their history, and then proceeded to pass into obscurity. Some of the Hebrew words found jumbled in with Latin are Jehovah, peace, and mighty empire. Did the explorers consider themselves part of a mighty empire, or did they find themselves confronted with a mighty empire in the American Southwest? The Scientific American for July 22nd, 1882, tells of a curious find of pre-Indian relics from Virginia. Now listen to this. The objects found between the ranges of the Blue and Allegheny Mountains near Mount Pisgah, North Carolina, are said to be of a type absolutely unique, consisting partly of human, partly of animal figures, either in the round or in various degrees of relief. Some are household utensils. They appear to have been sculpted by metal instruments, so perfect is their workmanship. The correspondent for the Scientific American comments further that the human figurines were not fashioned in the likenesses of American Indians, and that the images were fully clothed in tight-fitting garments. Some of the figurines were represented as seated in armchairs. Others were astraddle a most remarkable variety of animals: bears, prairie dogs, and birds. An imaginative artisan at work, one may comment comfortably, but then here comes the zinger. Some of the riders are seated upon two-humped camels, rhinoceroses, and hippopotamuses. Either our artisan observed such African animals for himself, saw representations of such animals, or he was more than imaginative, he was clairvoyant. The Scientific American hazards a theory that the articles were made by an earlier and more civilized race, subjugated and partially destroyed by the Indians found in Virginia on the arrival of the white man. However, the specimens of the Old World animals were obviously made by a white man, the report concludes, without further explanation. Roman coins have been found unearthed in tribal burial mounds as far west as Illinois. An iron fork was found in a prehistoric tribal site near Eddyville, Kentucky. You starting to see a pattern here, folks? Anomalous things being found all over the place that don't fit in with the time that they're said to have been found from. Japanese pottery from the Jomon period of 3000 BC was found in Ecuador in 1966. Viking rune stones continue to be unearthed throughout the United States and Canada. The colossal stone heads scattered in the jungles of Veracruz display obvious Negroid features. A clay tablet found along the Susquehanna River, Deer, Winfield, Pennsylvania, bears a cuneiform inscription that describes a short-term loan from an Assyrian merchant in Cappadocia about 1900 BCE. So they found Assyrian, cuneiform tablets in a river in Pennsylvania, folks. Come on. An estimated 2 million pounds of copper were mined on Isle Royale in Michigan by some unnamed prehistoric mining empire that had the means of transporting the metal out of the immediate area. Several bog iron smelting furnaces have been scattered over the southern half of Ohio. Farmers in that state occasionally turn up iron artifacts in their fields. Speculation as to the identity of the ancient workers in iron has included the Vikings, the mysterious mound builders, or a long-forgotten civilization that once existed in America. All that can be said with certainty at this time is that when the early settlers arrived in Ohio in the year 1790 to 1810, they found no less than 100 abandoned hills crowned with stone fortifications. Some of these remained for years at Fort Hill, Spruce Hill, Glenford Fort in Perry County. Similar fortified hills may be seen at Hill Fort, Georgia, and Manchester, Tennessee. At the Manchester Fort, the first settlers found bricks and a short iron sword. Isn't that interesting? Found all these ancient artifacts, and that's right where they have Bonnaroo at, which is, a big ritual. In 1820, Caleb Atwater issued a report of a furnace surrounded by bricks in the central mound around which Circleville was built. With the furnace were what appeared to be a dagger and a plate, both of disintegrated iron. In 1953, miners of the Lion Coal Mines of Wadis, Utah, broke into a network of tunnels between 5 and 6 feet in height and width, which contained coal of such a vast antiquity that it had become weathered to a state of uselessness of any kind of burning or heat. A search outside the mountain in a direct line with the tunnels revealed no sign of any entrance. Since the tunnels were discovered when the miners were working an 8-foot coal seam at 8,500 feet, The evidence is irrefutable that an undetermined someone conducted an ambitious mining project so far back in time that all exterior traces of this have been eroded away. That's unbelievable. And this is what I'm saying. This is all over the place, folks. Professor John E. Wilson of the Department of Engineering, University of Utah, was quoted in the February 1954 issue of Coal Age. Without a doubt, both drifts were man-made. Though no evidence was found at the outcrop, the tunnels apparently were driven some 450 feet from the outside to the visible point where the present workings broke into them. There is no visible basis for dating the tunnels. Jesse D. Jennings, professor of anthropology at the University of Utah, could offer no opinion as to the identity of the ancient miners, but he denied the vast tunnel and coal mining rooms could have been the work of any Native American people. In the first place, such works would have required immediate and local need for coal, because before the white man came, transport was by human cargo carriers. As for local use, there was no reported extensive burning of coal by aboriginals in the region of the Wadis mine. The Morrisonville, Illinois Times of December 24, 1851, reprinted an item from the Springfield Republican titled "A Nut for Geologists." Hiram D. Weir of this town, who has recently returned from California, brought with him a piece of auriferious quartz rock at about the size of a man's fist. On Thanksgiving Day, it was brought out for exhibition to a friend when it accidentally dropped upon the floor and split open. Near the center of the mass was discovered firmly embedded in the quartz and slightly corroded a cut iron nail of the size of a sixpenny nail. It was entirely straight and had a perfect head. By whom was this nail made? At what period was it planted in the yet uncrystallized quartz? That's right. Someone would have had to have placed that nail there, and the quartz crystal would have had to crystallize over it over the course of, hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of years. How did it come to California? If that head of that nail could talk, we should know something more of American history than we are ever likely to know. In a letter dated December 5th, 1879, a Mr. Hannibal Fox of Milton, Sullivan County, Missouri, wrote to the American Antiquarian, Volume 3, page 336, regarding his discovery of a silver and iron mask which he had uncovered while plowing a field. The publication commented that the melting iron and silver in a crucible and preparing a matrix by placing clay over the face after death and pouring the metal so that the vessel tip did not seem to be operations which are usual among the Aborigines, or as far as we even know, among the mound builders. On Tuesday, June 9th, 1891, Mrs. S.W. Culp broke a lump of coal preparatory to placing it inside the scuttle in an act she had performed thousands of times. However, the artifact that fell out of the lump was most singular. At first, Mrs. Culp thought the chain had been dropped accidentally in the coal. But as she undertook to lift the chain up, the idea of its having been recently dropped was at once made fallacious. For as the lump of coal broke, it separated almost in the middle, and the circular position of the chain placed the two ends near to each other. As the lump separated, the middle of the chain became loosened, while each end remained fastened to the coal. In the Creation Research Society Quarterly, Wilbert H. Ross, Sr., professor of biology of Concordia College in Ann Arbor, Michigan, quoted a letter of a colleague received from a Frank J. Kenwood, who said that he had been a fireman in the municipal electric plant in Thomas, Oklahoma, in 1912 when he split a large piece of coal open and discovered an iron pot encased within it. This iron pot fell over from the center, leaving the impression of the mold of the pot in the piece of coal. I traced the source of the coal and found that it came from the Wilburton, Oklahoma mines. It is difficult to place the age of such items as coins, chains, silver masks, and iron pots. The radiocarbon-14 method of determining age can only be applied to organic materials such as bone, wood, coal, and textiles. On December 17, 1869, the Los Angeles News printed an account of an inscribed slate wall that had been supplied by a correspondent of the Cleveland Herald writing from Wellsville, Ohio. Captain Lacey of Hammondsville, Ohio, had some men engaged in making an entry into his coal bank when a huge mass of coal fell down, disclosing a large, smooth slate wall, upon the surface of which were plainly carved several lines of hieroglyphics. No one has yet been able to tell in what language the words are written. The letters are raised. The first line contains 25. It is probably that they were cut in the coal while in its vegetable state and during its formation into coal. So someone would have to have written in it while the coal itself was forming. How is that possible? The matter from which the slate is formed filled the impression and became solid, for since the removal of the coal, we find the letters upon the slate apparently reversed. The men discovered the wall with its undecipherable hieroglyphics about 100 feet below the surface, and the letters were cut into the coal in its vegetable state, as the anonymous journalist suggests. Then we are back in the Carboniferous systems approximately 250 million years ago. The Scientific American Journal for January 14, 1886 carries a report from the Lexington, Kentucky Press that tells of a massive stone wall unearthed by workmen quarrying rock 1 mile from the town on the Frankfort Pike. It had every appearance of having been built by human hands, the mortar, seams, and joints being very plain. Above it, about 10 feet of drift and 20 feet of rock had been removed by the workmen. And on the side exposed, the men had advanced fully 40 feet from where they first struck rock. Thus, it was firmly embedded in a solid limestone quarry, which certainly was formed about it since the wall was built. The face of the wall was well dressed, and its massive appearance gave evidence of the skill of hands, perished long centuries ago, and could well be envied by the best of the stonemasons today. On June 27, 1969, workmen leveling a rock shelf at the 122nd Street on the Broadway extension between Edmond and Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, uncovered a rock formation that created a great deal of controversy among investigating authorities. To a layman, the site looked like an inlaid mosaic tiled floor. Apparently, it looked very much like someone's inlaid floor to some of the experts as well. I am sure this was man-made because the stones are placed in perfect sets of parallel lines which intersect to form a diamond shape. This is in Oklahoma. See, I didn't even know about this. Another thing in Oklahoma. I mean, I started reading this, folks, and I just realized, my God, this, this is this could open up a whole other can of whoop-ass for the film here. I mean, look at all these, the cases and examples that we have here of this stuff. We found post holes which measure a perfect 2 rods from the other 2. The top of the stone is very smooth, and if you lift one of them, you will find it is very jagged, which indicates wear on the surface. Everything is too well to be placed by a natural formation. Dr. Robert Bell, an archaeologist from the University of Oklahoma, expressed his opinion that the find was a natural formation. That's what they always say. Dr. Bell said that he could see no evidence of any mortaring substance, but Pate, on the other hand, was able to distinguish some kind of mud between each stone. Delbert Smith, a geologist president of the Oklahoma Seismograph Company, said the formation, which was discovered about 3 feet beneath the surface, appeared to cover several thousand square feet. The Tulsa World in June 29, 1969, quoted Smith as saying, "There is no question about it. It has been laid there, but I have no idea by whom." On November 5th, 1967, Frank Tolbert, columnist for the Dallas Morning News, wrote about a buried city under Rockwall, Texas. Raymond B. Cameron told Tolbert that the walls of the Mystery City were about 8 inches thick and that the stones had been formed or placed on top of each other, with the ends breaking near the corner of the stone above or below, just as a fine mason would build a wall. The stones gave the appearance of having been beveled around their edges, and the walls were too regular in appearance to have been formed by nature. Cameron went on to say that there was a mortar-like substance between the stones. Then he dropped the biggest blockbuster of all. 4 large stones taken from the wall segments appear to have been inscribed by some form of writing. This couldn't have been done by erosion since the stones were underground. Tolbert concluded his column by recalling the visit of a famous archaeologist, Count Byron Kuhn de Porok, to Dallas in the 1920s. The Count seemed to lean heavily on the theory that these were once the walls of an ancient city. He said the walls look remarkably like those of buried cities he's excavated in North Africa and the Middle East. Interesting, North Africa and the Middle East, both those places, being the cradle of civilization. And then, of course, you've got Dallas being on the 33rd degree parallel. In March 1964, Frank McNamara Jr., digging in his cellar in South Boston in an attempt to plug a leak, unearthed a sculpture, a 10-pound stone head. The artwork shows the hair in short curls, the eyes slant downwards and are quite long. There is rather primitive treatment to the ears. The strange find in a South Boston basement has baffled some of the best archaeologists and anthropologists at Harvard and at a number of museums and schools. There is a consensus that the artifact is not the work of Native American Indians, but from that point, no one is certain whether the piece should be ascribed to the Near East, Western Asia, or Egypt. One authority ventured his opinion that the style of the primitive head would suggest the Near East of about 700 BC. No one seems interested in speculating just how the artifact came to reside in several feet below the earth in South Boston. But then again, there aren't too many archaeologists or other members of the scientific community who appear very interested in determining the identity of the nations before our own that occupied the continents of North and South America. So, yeah, man, there you go. Wow. I mean, there's just, there's so much underneath us. There's so much buried underneath us. There's so much right here. There's so many questions we don't have, and we're not even being allowed to even have access to the question to ask it. So this has definitely inspired me for the for the research I'm doing for this next film. Wow. Phew, man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Well, I want to get into reading the Kabbalion tonight, but I got to take a little breather. My throat, I got to get a drink. Wasn't expecting to read that much that long. Phew. All right, I got to take a breather real quick, and as soon as we get back, we'll read chapter 13 of the Kabbalion for you here tonight. This is the goal. All right, back here with you on the show. Final segment of the broadcast for you here tonight. Thanks so much for being with us for another live edition. My website is theglobalreality.com. That's theglobalreality.com. We have the chip and banner, the donate button up there, and our website. That's how you support our work. That's how you keep us going and keeping the films coming out and all this stuff. That's how you do it. Chip and banner is there. We're having a fundraiser to kick off 2012. So we can have a little war chest to get some work done. Please support our work there. We have a donate button if you just want to send in, small amount, big amount, doesn't matter, whatever it is there. We also have monthly subscriptions you can get right there. And we also have a wish list from Amazon if you'd want to go fill any of that stuff there. That's things that, items that I'd like to have for the next film project. So it's all there, and it's on my website, theglobalreality.com. Thank you so much. Let's get into chapter 13 tonight of the Kabbalion, Gender. The great seventh Hermetic principle, the principle of gender, embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything, and that the masculine and feminine principles are ever present and active in all phases of phenomena. On each and every plane, at this point, we think it well to call your attention to the fact that gender, in its Hermetic sense, and sex in the ordinary accepted use term are not the same. The word gender is derived from the Latin root meaning to beget, to procreate, to generate, to create, to produce. A moment's consideration will show you that the word has a much broader and more general meaning than the term sex, the latter referring to the physical distinctions between male and female living things. Sex is merely a manifestation of gender on a certain plane of the great physical plane, the plane of organic life. We wish to impress this distinction upon your minds for the reason that certain writers who have acquired a smattering of the Hermetic philosophy have sought to identify this seventh Hermetic principle with wild and fanciful and often reprehensible theories and teachings regarding sex. The office of gender is solely that of creating, producing, generating, etc., and its manifestations are visible on every plane of phenomena. It is somewhat difficult to produce proofs of this along scientific lines, for the reason that science has not as yet recognized this principle as of universal application. but still some proofs are forthcoming from scientific sources. In the first place, we find a distinct manifestation of the principle of gender among the corpuscles, ions, or electrons, which constitute the basis of matter as science now knows the latter, and which by forming certain combinations form the atom, which until lately was regarded as final and indivisible. The latest word of science is that the atom is composed of a multitude of corpuscles, electrons, or ions, revolving around each other and vibrating at a high degree in intensity. But the accompanying statement is made that the formation of the atom is really due to the clustering of negative corpuscles around a positive one. The positive one seeming to exert a certain influence upon the negative, causing the latter to assume certain combinations and thus create or generate an atom. This is in line with the most ancient Hermetic teachings, which have always identified the masculine principle of gender with the positive and the feminine with the negative poles of electricity. Now, a word at this point regarding this identification. The public mind has formed an entirely erroneous impression regarding the qualities of the so-called negative pole or electrified magnetized matter. The terms positive and negative are very wrongly applied to this phenomenon by science. The word positive means something real and strong as compared with a negative unreality or weakness. Nothing is further from the real facts of electrical phenomena. The so-called negative pole of the battery is really the pole in, and by which the generation or production of new forms or energies is manifested. There is nothing negative about it. The best scientific authorities now use the word cathode in place of negative. The word cathode coming from the Greek root word meaning descent, the path of generation, etc. From the cathode pole emerges the swarm of electrons. From the same pole emerge these wonderful rays which have revolutionized scientific conceptions during the past decade. The cathode pole is the mother of all the strange phenomena which have rendered useless the old textbooks and which have caused many long accepted theories to be relegated to the scrap pile of scientific speculation. The cathode or negative pole is the mother principle of electrical phenomena and of the finest forms of matter as yet known to science. So you see, we are justified in refusing to use the term negative in our consideration of the subject, and in insisting upon substituting the word feminine for the old term. The facts of the case bear us out in this without taking the Hermetic teachings into consideration, and so we shall use the word feminine in the place of negative in speaking of that pole of activity. The latest scientific teachings are that the creative corpuscles or electrons are feminine. Science says they are composed of negative electricity. We say they are composed of feminine energy. A feminine electron becomes detached from, or rather leaves, a masculine electron and starts on a new career. It actively seeks a union with a masculine electron, being urged thereto by the natural impulse to create new forms of matter or energy. One writer goes so far as to use the term, it at once seeks of its own volition a union, etc. This detachment and uniting from the basis of the greater part of the activities of the chemical world. When the feminine electron unites with a masculine electron, a certain process is begun. The feminine particles vibrate rapidly under the influence of the masculine energy and circle rapidly around the latter. The result is the birth of a new atom. This new atom is really composed of a union of the masculine and feminine electrons, or corpuscles. But when the union is formed, the atom is a separate thing, having certain properties no longer manifesting the property of free electricity. The process of detachment or separation of the feminine electrons is called ionization. These electrons are the most active workers in nature's field, arising from their unions or combinations, manifest the varied phenomenon of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, attraction, repulsion, chemical affinity, and the reverse and similar phenomenon. And all this arises from the operation of the principle of gender on the plane of energy. The part of the masculine principle seems to be that of directing a certain inherent energy toward the feminine principle, and thus starting into activity the creative process. Yeah, it's called, I'm a man, I have a penis, Let's have sex and procreate, That's what it is. That's a great way of describing a man right there. His masculine principle seems to be that of directing certain inherent energy towards the feminine principle. Yeah. We drool and our penises get hard and we get horny and we're like, vagina, 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 vagina. And that's what they mean by directing a certain inherent energy toward the feminine principle and thus starting you into activity, the creative process. Yeah. But the feminine principle is the one always doing the active creative work. And this is so on all planes. And yet each principle is incapable of operative energy without the assistance of the other. In some of the forms of life, the two principles are combined in one organism. For that matter, everything in the organic world manifests both genders. There is always the masculine present in the feminine form and the feminine present in the masculine form as well. The Hermetic teachings include much regarding the operation of the two principles of gender and the production and manifestation of various forms of energy. But we do not deem it expedient to go into the detail regarding the same at this point because we are unable to back up the same with scientific proof for the reason that science has not yet progressed thus far. But the example we have given you of the phenomenon of the electrons will show you that science is on the right path and will also give you a general idea of the underlying principles. Some leading scientific investigators have announced their belief that in the formation of crystals there was to be found something that corresponded to sex activity, which is another straw showing the direction the scientific winds are blowing. And each year will bring other facts to corroborate the correctness of the Hermetic principle of gender. It will be found that gender is in constant operation and manifestation in the field of inorganic matter and in the field of energy or force. Electricity is now generally regarded as the something into which all other forms of energy seem to melt or dissolve. The electrical theory of the universe is the latest scientific doctrine and is growing rapidly in popularity and general acceptance. And it thus follows that if we are able to discover in the phenomenon of electricity, even at the very root and source of its manifestations, a clear and unmistakable evidence of the presence of gender and its activities, we are justified in asking you to believe that science, at last, has offered proofs of the existence in all universal phenomena of the great Hermetic principle, the principle of gender. It is not necessary to take up your time with a well-known phenomenon of the attraction and repulsion of the atoms, the chemical affinity, the loves and hates of the atomic particles, the attraction, cohesion between the molecules of matter. These facts are too well known to need extended comment from us, but have you ever considered that all of these things are manifestations of the gender principle? Can you not see that the phenomenon is on all fours with that of the corpuscles or electrons? And more than this, can you not see that the reasonables of the Hermetic teachings, which assert that the very law of gravitation, that strange attraction by reason of which all particles and bodies and matters in the universe tend toward each other, is but another manifestation of the principle of gender, which operates in the direction of attracting the masculine to the feminine energies and vice versa? We cannot offer you scientific proof of this at this time, but examine the phenomenon in the light of the Hermetic teachings on the subject and see if you have not a better working hypothesis than any offered by physical science. Submit all physical phenomena to the test, and you will discern the principle of gender ever in evidence. Let us now pass on to a consideration of the operation of the principle on the mental plane. Many interesting features are there awaiting examination. So we will examine those next time on the broadcast. Chapter 14, mental gender. And we'll get into that next time on the broadcast. Yeah. Excellent stuff there. Our continued series of reading the Kabbalion here on the Global Reality, and we'll get into more next time. Thanks to everybody for tuning in and being with us here tonight. TheGlobalReality.com is my website. Please go there and order your DVDs or Blu-rays or research packs and all that stuff for The Secret Rite Volume 2, my newest film. If you want to jump in the fight exposing the phony patriots and exposing Alex Jones and the whole history of the phony conspiracy truth movement, well, then you need to get yourself a DVD or a Blu-ray, and we'll be shipping out everybody else's tomorrow. Please donate if you can, folks. We seriously need your help this week, so go to our website and make that possible. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you, and you guys have a great night. Take care.